At 14 years old, Noah Carter stood in front of the cheapest house in the county. The faded wooden sign read, "Property auction. Final bid, $5." The house barely deserved to be called a house. Its roof had collapsed in one corner. Most windows were broken. The front porch leaned dangerously toward the ground. Vines climbed through missing sections of the walls. Everyone attending the tax auction laughed. "Kid, you'll spend more tearing it down." Another man shook his head. Even raccoons moved out. Noah ignored them. He reached into his pocket and placed his last $5 bill onto the auction table. $5. The clerk stared. "You understand there's no electricity?" "Yes." "No plumbing?" "Yes." "The building has been condemned." "I understand." The clerk shrugged. "Sold." The crowd laughed even harder. Nobody understood why a 14-year-old wanted a collapsing house. Nobody knew he had nowhere else to go. 6 months earlier, Noah lived with his mother in a small apartment. Money was always tight. Still, they managed. Then his mother became seriously ill. Hospital visits replaced school events. Medical bills replaced grocery money. Despite fighting bravely for nearly a year, she never came home. After the funeral, Noah expected to live with relatives. Instead, every conversation ended the same way. "We're sorry. We just can't." His closest uncle already supported 4 children. An aunt lived across the country. Others simply refused. The state placed Noah in temporary care. He ran away twice. Not because the families were cruel, because none of them felt like home. One afternoon, while helping clean an old storage room at the county office, Noah overheard 2 employees talking. "That abandoned house on Willow Road. They'll probably auction it for almost nothing. Nobody wants it." That sentence stayed with him. A retired schoolteacher named Mrs. Eleanor Brooks quietly noticed his interest. She had known Noah's mother for years. "You know?" She smiled gently. "Sometimes worthless things become valuable if the right person believes in them." A week later, she secretly handed Noah $5. A loan. He tried refusing. She insisted. "Pay me back someday." Now that $5 bill had become a deed. The old house officially belonged to him. The first evening wasn't easy. Rain leaked through the damaged roof. Cold wind entered through broken windows. He slept inside a sleeping bag beneath the only intact corner of the ceiling. Morning brought determination. He cleaned, removed broken furniture, cleared weeds, stacked reusable lumber. Every afternoon after school, he worked. Weekends too. Neighbors watched curiously. Most assumed he'd quit within days. Instead, the opposite happened. An elderly carpenter named Frank stopped by. "You planning to fix it?" "I'm trying." Frank studied the damaged porch. "You holding the hammer wrong." Noah smiled awkwardly. "I've never used one before." Frank returned the following morning. Then the next. Without saying much, he taught Noah everything. Measuring, cutting, framing, repairing. By the end of the month, the porch stood straight again. Others slowly joined. A retired plumber donated leftover pipe. An electrician replaced dangerous wiring. A roofing company dropped off and used shingles. Nobody gave Noah money. They gave him knowledge. Exactly what he needed. One evening, Mrs. Brooks visited. She smiled proudly. "Your mother would have loved this." Noah looked around the little house. "It still needs everything." She nodded. "So did you." The word stayed with him. Months passed. The abandoned house slowly transformed. One afternoon, while removing damaged plaster inside the upstairs bedroom, Noah noticed something unusual. One wall felt noticeably thicker than the others. He measured carefully. The exterior dimensions didn't match. There should have been another narrow room. Yet no doorway existed. Curious, he knocked along the wall. Most sections sounded solid. One section echoed. Hollow. Very hollow. He searched carefully. Nothing. No hinges. No hidden handle. No loose boards. That evening Frank stopped by after work. Noah mentioned the strange wall. Frank frowned. Old builders sometimes hid utility spaces. Together they examined the room. Frank suddenly laughed. "I've seen this before." He pointed toward an old decorative coat hook mounted beside the fireplace. That hook shouldn't be there. Noah twisted it. Nothing. Then he pulled downward. A quiet metallic click echoed inside the wall. Poe stepped back. Part of the wall slowly swung inward. Dust filled the room. Behind it appeared a narrow hidden workshop. Shelves lined every wall. Old woodworking tools remained perfectly organized. Blueprint tubes rested inside wooden racks. A heavy oak drafting table stood beneath the only window. At its center lay one envelope. Across the front, in faded handwriting, appeared 6 simple words. For whoever rebuilds this house. Noah carefully opened the letter. The paper had yellowed with age. If you're reading this, you already understand something most people never learn. Buildings aren't saved by money. They're saved by people willing to work. Noah continued reading. The unknown builder explained that every improvement made inside the workshop had been carefully documented. Furniture designs, construction methods, mechanical inventions. Everything remained preserved. Then one sentence stood alone near the bottom. The workshop protects only half the legacy. Noah frowned. Half. He searched the room again. Every cabinet, every shelf, every blueprint. One phrase appeared repeatedly inside several journals. The foundation room. Always capitalized. Always important. Never explained. As evening sunlight streamed through the hidden workshop window, Noah slowly smiled. Because suddenly the broken $5 house everyone mocked wasn't simply an abandoned building anymore. It was the beginning of a mystery someone had carefully prepared for exactly the kind of person willing to rebuild it from the ground up. Noah carefully unfolded the letter. The handwriting belonged to a man named Samuel Whitmore. He had built the house nearly 70 years earlier. If you've opened this workshop, the letter began, then you cared enough to save this home instead of tearing it down. Noah smiled. That sounded exactly like something Frank would have appreciated. The letter continued. Most people believed I built furniture. That was only my profession. What I really built were second chances. Curious, Noah began opening the blueprint tubes. Inside were hundreds of beautifully hand-drawn designs. Tables, cabinets, rocking chairs, bookshelves. Every piece combined elegance with practical engineering. But something seemed unusual. Each drawing included handwritten notes. Not just about measurements. About improving production, reducing waste, helping beginners learn woodworking faster. Samuel hadn't simply designed furniture. He designed ways to teach people. Then Noah noticed another cabinet hidden beneath the drafting table. Inside sat dozens of leather-bound journals. Every journal carried the same title. The Foundation Room. He opened the first one. The pages described a hidden room beneath the house. Not for valuables. For knowledge. The final page contained a simple instruction. Follow the staircase behind the workshop furnace. Noah looked around. An old cast-iron furnace stood in one corner. Frank helped him carefully move it. Beneath it lay an iron ring embedded in the floor. Together they lifted the heavy hatch. Stone steps descended into darkness. This place just keeps getting bigger, Frank whispered. They climbed down slowly. The staircase opened into a remarkable underground room. It wasn't a cellar. It was a complete training workshop. Long workbenches filled the center. Professional woodworking equipment lined the walls. Shelves overflowed with lumber. Hand tools, power tools, instruction manuals. Everything remained organized as though someone expected students to arrive the next morning. At the center stood a large oak table. Another envelope rested there. Noah opened it immediately. Congratulations. You found the foundation room. Samuel explained that during difficult economic times, he secretly trained young people who had nowhere else to go. Orphans, runaways, children aging out of care, teenagers abandoned by their families. He never charged them. Instead, he taught them skills that allowed them to build independent lives. Many eventually opened their own businesses. Some became master craftsmen. Others became teachers themselves. The workshop had quietly changed hundreds of lives. Then Noah discovered something even more surprising. Behind another steel cabinet rested carefully organized legal files. Property deeds, investment accounts, royalty agreements. Over the years, many former students voluntarily donated tiny percentages of their businesses back to Samuel's foundation. Not because they had to, because they wanted future students to receive the same opportunity. Those tiny contributions quietly grew for decades. Then Noah found one final item. An old computer powered by a backup battery. Beside it rested a flash drive labeled, "For the next builder." He inserted it. The screen flickered. An elderly Samuel Whitmore appeared. He smiled warmly. "If you're watching this, then this house chose well." Noah laughed quietly. Nobody had ever said a house could choose someone. Samuel continued. "I learned something after teaching hundreds of young people. Most didn't need rescuing. They needed someone who believed they could become more than their circumstances." He slowly walked through the underground workshop. Money disappears. Buildings eventually wear out. But practical knowledge, creates opportunity forever. Samuel looked directly into the camera. If this foundation has made you financially secure, wonderful. But promise me something. Never let this become a museum. Keep it alive. Fill these benches with people willing to learn. The recording ended. Noah sat quietly. Frank placed a hand on his shoulder. I think he was talking directly to you. Over the following months, attorneys confirmed everything. The legal documents were authentic. The foundation still existed. Its carefully managed investments generated steady income. Enough to maintain the property. Enough to expand its mission. Enough to give Noah something far greater than financial security. It gave him purpose. Instead of selling anything, Noah restored the house completely. The upstairs became a comfortable home. The underground workshop reopened exactly as Samuel intended. Teenagers from difficult situations learned woodworking, furniture restoration, construction, business management. Every graduate left with practical skills and confidence. Mrs. Brooks became the foundation's first volunteer teacher. Frank supervised the workshops. Local businesses donated equipment. The community that once laughed at the $5 house slowly became its greatest supporter. Years passed. The little abandoned house transformed into something remarkable. Its handcrafted furniture gained national attention. Graduates opened successful workshops across the country. Many returned to teach the next generation. On Noah's 24th birthday, a television crew arrived to film the story. The reporter stood outside the beautifully restored home. So, is it true you bought this house for $5? Noah smiled. Technically, yes. And now it's worth millions? He looked toward the workshop where young apprentices carefully built their first pieces of furniture. Yes. The reporter grinned. So what was hidden inside? Most people expected treasure. Gold, jewels, cash. Instead, Noah answered honestly. A classroom. The reporter blinked. A classroom. And a promise. What promise? Noah looked around the bustling workshop. Young people laughed while helping one another solve problems. Some sanded tables. Others learned cabinet making. One teenage boy carefully measured his first bookshelf under Frank's patient guidance. Then Noah answered. The promise that your past doesn't have to decide your future. The reporter lowered her microphone. I think that's worth more than treasure. Noah nodded. It is. As evening sunlight illuminated the restored house, Noah stood on the front porch where everyone once laughed at him. The $5 property had indeed become worth millions. Not because of hidden gold, not because of forgotten cash, but because generations of ordinary people invested in one extraordinary idea. That when someone is given practical skills, honest guidance, and a reason to believe in themselves, they can rebuild far more than an old house. They can rebuild an entire life. And inside the most abandoned home in the county, that priceless legacy had been waiting for exactly the right 14-year-old to discover it.